Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the April, it's still April installment of our virtual summit, Moving Forward Together. I'm Lori Thompson, and the Capital STEM Alliance Director, Career Connect Washington at ESD 113. And I'd like to introduce our co-hosts, Cheryl Haywood, this Executive Director of Timberland Regional Library, and Chris Cherzan, the Public Information Officer at Timberland Regional Library. I'm really glad you were all able to join us today. This is another exciting summit that we're doing. One in a series. I believe this is our sixth one in the series, if I'm not mistaken. We do this twice a year around topics of interest around the region. And today we are going to be talking about STEM education for youth and career pathways. This is a topic that is near and dear to my heart, and we have some great panelists here who know a lot about STEM education and workforce development, and who are here to give you as much information as possible. So what I'd like to do is turn it over and introduce our amazing keynote speaker. Cecily Keister is a colleague of mine at ESD 113, that's Educational Service District 113 in Tumwater. And she's been working with me for almost 3 years now, I believe. And she knows everything there is to know about career technical education and STEM education and career pathways post-secondary. So anything to do with anything like that, STEM education from K through 12, how it connects to post-secondary education and creating a wonderful career in a high demand, high wage field. So I am going to turn it over to Cecily, and she's going to be our keynote speaker. Cecily.
Lori, thank you so much for that really over-the-top introduction. I do not know all there is to know, but I am so delighted to be with this group of folks, especially those of you that are joining us of your own free will at 4:30 in the afternoon. But this panel that is here today is some of the best folks, most knowledgeable folks, and the best, most knowledge seekers that I've ever met, where everybody's kind of always looking for the next information that's going to help youth and help our workforce and help our state. So I'm going to share my screen. I do have a presentation. We are recording this, so I will try to be good. I don't know. I really like to have folks participate, so I'll try to be more like webinar-y, but it's not necessarily guaranteed. So hold on, I have to get my stuff out of the way here. Thank you for your patience. All right. Let me know, you can all see my screen, okay?
Yes, we're good.
Thank you. And can you hear me okay? Because I know my internet is...
Yes, we can hear you.
Fishy. Okay. So we want to talk about STEM education, and this title, I couldn't think of a snappier one, but it's really what we're going to talk about today is rethinking what STEM education is and how it impacts our youth today and impacts all of us. STEM education is indeed for everyone. So my name is Cecily Keister. As Lori said, I'm the Career Connected Learning Administrator at Educational Service District 113. We're in Tumwater. We cover the capital region, which is 5 counties, the same area that Timberland Regional Library covers, and our Workforce Development Council, and it's great so that we're all kind of lined up, and Capital STEM Alliance. And I love being a part of that. On this side is the screenshot or the headshot from literally 15 years ago, and I have all this collagen in my face. It's like amazing. But on the left is more recent, and there's my little doggy. No makeup, just in my car, taking my dog for a walk. But I do throw up the collagen one just for kicks. It kind of still looks like me. So I would love to know what you think off the top of your head when you see the term STEM. What comes to mind? It could be a job, it can be a class, a major, it can be a class your kid has taken or a class you teach, what comes to mind? You could put it in chat. I'm going to shout out some because I can't really see much stuff. And again, we're webinaring a little bit. So, but I would love to hear your thoughts.
Cecily, I can monitor the chat for you if you like.
Thank you. I think everybody, problem solving. Oh, I love that, Marcy. It's exactly right. I love that our audience is growing too. Hands-on creative work. You guys are giving my whole presentation, so it's fine. I'll just be able to leave soon. 21st century skills. Very cool. I agree with all of this. Any more thoughts on like when somebody has a STEM job, what job first comes to mind?
Kat
And
says every job.
Kat says every job, and she's not allowed to answer, but she's right, of course. Well, the jobs that a lot of folks come up with, including, ye old dusty Google, is kind of health sciences, engineering, IT, physics. So science, technology, engineering, and math is the acronym, of course. When we think of STEM, we also can think of maybe the social sciences have kind of crept in as acceptable in STEM because they follow the same scientific method to do all of their research. They code their data, even though a lot of it is qualitative. So it's really, I mean, it's cool. And then anything you think of, statistics, sports statistics, like there's all sorts of stuff that technically is STEM, but the ones that come to mind, I always think of like a lab technician in a white coat with a pipette, like sitting there doing something with a tube. Or I think of somebody with it, like doing computer aided drafting with something or like designing a car, which is also very cool. But yes. So this is from a while ago, 2017, but it's from WASTEM, and I thought this was really interesting. STEM recognition, like recognizing what that means, STEM, when you throw it at somebody on the street, has grown quite a lot over the last few years. So if you look at 2013, have you ever heard of STEM, which stands for that? And a bunch of folks, 2/3 said nope. And then we kind of evened out in 2015. And now we're almost up to 2/3 that say yes. And now, I mean, that was 8 years ago. So now we're probably even higher than that. But that was a pretty impressive marketing campaign, if you ask me, to have that flip that we can see on this graph. That's not small. So when you throw that term STEM out to any rando or friend or family member, you will probably get some recognition like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'm always curious to know what any individual thinks when they think of STEM. This is the next question. What do you think the public at large, not in our jobs, not in education, but the public at large, when they hear STEM, if they were one of those folks that went from the no to the yes on this graph, what do you think they think of when they think of STEM? This is very judgmental, but it's okay. It's just us and anybody watching this webinar. What do you think? Yeah. Robots, jobs and trades. Oh, cool, Charlotte. Robots for sure, right? More technically jobs. I think before I was an adult or a teacher, I thought of doctors, I thought of healthcare a lot, but robots for sure, like NASA, you think of NASA, right? Yeah, 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 yeah. Which is all correct. It's all correct. And so that's kind of where our fabulous marketing campaign, whoever was behind the big STEM marketing campaign, that's kind of where they got us, was an acknowledgement of this sector of education and careers. But, like everything, it's not perfect. So looking at the state of Washington, some of you have seen this before. This Washington is, I think, the fourth top state in STEM careers, STEM jobs that are available and will be available. So Washington's up there, and you can guess why. We've got our mini Silicon Valley up there in Redmond. We've got Boeing. We've got quite a lot of stuff going on. So 62% require a credential in STEM literacy. And when we say a credential, we don't mean a degree. Could be a degree, but it could be not a degree. It could be a certification or something else. Hold on. And I got stopped. So these are the jobs that pay a family wage, and I'm moving on to the next one. So the light blue is the credential required, no credential required. So basically what we're seeing is a huge gap. We've got these STEM job openings that we're seeing, and the class of 2022 was projected to get a credential about less than, it was just a very small amount. That's just a small amount. Maybe, yeah,
It was
I'm
a
not doing
third.
that.
It was
I'm
about
obviously not.
a third of the
Well,
class
yeah,
was supposed to get.
but of 181, 30,000, right? And
Mhm.
so that's who is going to get a credential. And so we have this massive gap. And that's kind of what Career Connect Washington and Capital STEM Alliance and all of these great partners that are here today and Timberland Regional Library, it's what we all kind of look at and say, how are we going to plan for this or help or fix or make this work? And it's not our youth's fault. It's just um, maybe it's a marketing thing. It might be. So I want to talk to you about a Washington State human through some data, and we're going to go through this fast because there's more fun stuff later. But I'm looking at my time and we're okay. So this is Washington humans in their STEM life that we can see from available data. And so don't fall asleep. This is exciting, even though it's all like bar graphs, but I love bar graphs and I hope you do too. So a Washington human, when they start their school career, oftentimes they'll start in a preschool, but when we start measuring them, the state is usually at kindergarten readiness, right? And so that's called the WA Kids test, and it is KIDS stands for something awesome, and I can't remember what it is, but it's basically the kindergarten readiness assessment. It assesses quite a bit. It assesses academic things like your math, your literacy, but it also assesses your social emotional readiness. It assesses your communication skills, self-advocacy, and those kinds of things. So then they have a whole way of measuring it, compiling those scores, and then deciding if a child is ready for kindergarten. So looking at this is old data, but not too old. To me, 2023 was totally just yesterday, so I'm totally okay with that. But if you look at these specific groups, household income is below the federal poverty line, children of color, English language learners, housing instability, students with disabilities. So take a look looking down, and then take a look looking across. And you can always put anything in the chat that you want, that you're just observing, whether I ask for it or not. I would appreciate it. But as you can see, we've gone down. Not only were we not great before COVID, but we've gone down. And specifically, some of our marginalized groups were already at a disadvantage and have gone even further down. The gap may have stayed the same width, but everybody kind of drooped a little bit. So this is kindergarten readiness by race ethnicity. This is 24-25. This is the Washington State report card. It's a tableau that you can log in and look at anytime. This is by race and ethnicity, and then by student program and characteristics. So take a look. Again, this is just, did we stamp the student's forehead with, yes, you're ready for kindergarten, based on all the measures. So take a look. We have some really alarming data around American Indian, Alaska Native, Native Hawaiian, other Pacific Islanders, and Hispanic Latino, and Black African American students. And then, of course, our low-income students compared to our non-low income, and our migrant compared to our non-migrant, students with disabilities, students without disabilities. We can see those are big gaps in kindergarten readiness. When I think of kindergarten readiness, we can put STEM right in there, because that's, the things that you have all outlined, their ability to problem solve, their ability to communicate what they need, even for a 4 or a 5 or a 6 year old, right? Are they able to, see how something works? Are they able to do math, the basic math, and recognize their colors and all of those things that are the beginnings, right? And now this is where the human moves on to third grade and beyond, where we state test them. We test them in English language arts, math, and science. And this view is also on the Washington State report card. This is last year, or the year that ended in 24. But what is the most alarming trend line on here that kind of knocks on your door and won't let go? It tells the story of our Washington person. Anybody want to take a stab at it?
To me, it looks like science is much lower achievement than the others, than language arts or math, although math is pretty low too. And
Yeah.
that it's not a very competitive way to enter the workforce when you have very few STEM skills or proficiency.
So I should say on this right column, the WAAIM is the test that is modified for students with disabilities. So the measure is not the same as the group on the left. The group on the left is the standard Smarter Balance assessment. And then the WACUS that we call the WACUS is the science test that they take. So Smarter Balance is ELA and math. WACUS is science. And then on the right here, we have the students with disabilities who had modified state testing were able to take this. And again, you still see kind of those gaps, right? But look at this line from like third grade, and then it slowly falls off a cliff. I know, Kat, that's exactly what I was thinking too. And then like Lori said, we see that same trend in science. Ugh. That makes us sad. So we're talking about our Washington human, right? If they belong to a certain group, already start at a disadvantage in their kindergarten readiness. Imagine then how that disadvantage perpetuates as we see all of our kids kind of fall off the math cliff, right? In third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and especially moving into middle school. That's where the kids get intimidated. They start to have a mindset of math is not me. I can't do math, from whomever told them that, or whomever near them also said that we say that about ourselves all the time, in front of kids. Don't ever do that. Let's not do that anymore. But you know what I mean. So we're talking about our Washington human, and here's the gender gap. We can't deny this, right, for STEM. So this is high school now. Our students are in high school, and this is a graph about kind of the kids who have it going on. They not only have a high school that's offering advanced placement courses for college credit, which not every high school can do, but they're actually enrolled and they're actually masters of the topic to take that course. That requires levels of privilege and preparation that we saw are really difficult to get. So this group, even with that group, this highly privileged, highly prepared, intelligent group, we still have this massive gap between men and women. And if I split it up and intersectioned it with race, we'd see even bigger gaps. I'm sure you understand. I love that the women are in statistics and environmental science. That's good stuff. And this was 2020, so that it could have changed, but the STEM data that I'm seeing, I wish I could have shown it to you all, or shown all of it to you. It was really great. It's very flat. Like we might see a little bit of an increase, but it stays alarmingly flat for an alarming number of years. So that's kind of why we're here always talking about STEM, is because we don't want it to be that way. And then we're back to this. So I kind of have already, we saw this already, but this is where I'm kind of saying, if you come in with a gap and then we follow that story of a Washingtonian and your gap, even if everybody else moves up and you move up, you're still behind, still behind, still behind, and sometimes horribly, the gap widens. That's even worse, and it happens all the time. Everybody's circumstances change and put them sometimes in one of these groups. You could become low income, you could become homeless. My students with disabilities are diagnosed at all ages, right? And maybe they just weren't diagnosed until super late, which puts them even further behind. There's all sorts of scenarios you can think of why that gap is not closing. So, what are your hunches on why, besides, well, they started that way, and there's racism, and low income kids don't get the same advantages? We know that stuff. Are there any other thoughts about why we see the data the way it is? Especially around STEM, maybe around women, around different races. Scaffolding, yes. Yeah, and I mean, imagine being a student whose English is not your first language. You come to this country and get chucked into a ninth grade Algebra 1 class, which you might be great at, but do they have a Spanish version of that test? I don't know. Maybe not. I hope so. So we've got some hunches, but here's what I want to show. This is now the workforce connection. I loved this graph. It was so cool. I did not make it. Some other brilliant folks make it. This is from the National Science Board, actually. Employed adults by workforce, educational attainment, and race or ethnicity. This is 2019. So some other race. So look at this now, and you can see total workforce on the left, non-STEM jobs right here. And that's really similar. STEM jobs, or jobs we would count as STEM, right? And then this splits, these two split the STEM jobs into two. STEM with bachelor's degree or higher. STEM without a bachelor's degree. What the heck is that? I have never seen a graph split this out, and I love it. I love it because that STW, anybody have any idea what that means? It means skilled technical workers. I love seeing them on a graph as STEM employees, but without a bachelor's degree. Did you see, we're going to go back because I just want you to see. Ooh, I have all these little floating dots on my screen that aren't letting me click on things that I want to click on. No, go away. Sorry. We're going to go back, but the Zoom annotation thing wanted me to draw something on it. Sorry about that. So, looking at this and the racial breakdown, I think it's interesting to see. And honestly, when we look between these two, if we want folks to have STEM jobs, it doesn't matter how they get there. But it is interesting to see the intersectionality of race and ethnicity with how they get there. It's pretty cool. So, skilled technical workers require a credential. Many of them do. So it's not like they can just rock up there and get a job that is going to pay them a family living wage, right? Many do not require a college degree, though, so the credential might be much less time. And sometimes the students can get some training before they even turn 18, which is pretty amazing. Many are not trained, many are trainable in or out of high school, like I said. So we've got high school students that are getting apprenticeship hours already in some of this work. And many of these skilled technical, these companies that hire will train their own workers. So many of these jobs will train their own people just to get the workers that they need. This is thrilling. This is exciting. So I want to tell you a little bit about math in our region. This is really irritating. Sorry. It won't let me go back because I have the little Zoom annotate thing hovering over the back button. So give me a second. I'm sure I could have figured that out, but what I'd love to do is show you how STEM is present in our region and how our students are experiencing it. Because the goal, we'll talk about the goal at the end, and we'll talk about the goal in our panel today too. I hope you stick around for that. It's going to be great. But basically, STEM is everywhere, as we said, and STEM is for everyone. Do we speak that into truth? Do we speak that in front of kids and students and youth? Maybe not enough. And even the adults, those folks that know what STEM means, do they understand that it's not just that person in the white lab coat with a pipette, or a robotics person, or a NASA person? All of those are great. I would do all of those things, but it could be anything. So here we have students in Tumwater. All of this stuff has happened in the last 3 years that I've been in this job. I have taken all of these pictures except for the ones I'll tell you about. But these are on my Dippy phone, so I pulled them out to show them to you. And let me tell you, it was really thrilling to kind of look through this, and then you're going to see why. So these students in an 8th grade math class went to the golf course and went to several different stations to learn about STEM on the golf course. The golf course taught them about natural resource management. This golf course uses reclaimed water. They learned about that. They learned about checking the soil density and the soil moisture. They learned about forestry management, what has to happen if they have to bring down a tree. They learned about all sorts of stuff, and water reclamation, water conservation. And then, of course, they got to knock some golf balls around, which was really the fun part. But it was a beautiful day, and they've done this now 3 times. They started this a couple of years ago. Tumwater Golf Course superintendents. They bring in a lot of other golf course superintendents who are thrilled to spend time with the students. But there's STEM on the golf course, which I hadn't maybe put together. There's STEM in Westport South Beach on the ocean in Maritime. Students restored this salvaged boat. It was literally drug up from the bottom of the bay. And they put it in this, and here's what happened. It's a funny story. They put it in this, these 2 men that own this salvage shop. They said, "Can you temporarily keep it here for us?" And they said, "Sure." And then the students started creeping in during their class period, and these 2 guys started teaching the students how to do stuff. And then they were like, "Wait, how do I become a teacher? Like, this is awesome. I loved this." And they treated it like a normal salvage job. And this, I took a picture of their whiteboard where they have initials of the students who did the job, and then they get points for doing those jobs. So if there's some really heinous, nasty jobs, they would tackle them and get those points. But you can see how all of this is like, we're talking material science. We're talking, not to mention the fluid dynamics, but they did electricity. They rewired the electricity in this boat. Not to mention the painting and the welding and the grinding and the metal work that they had to do as well. So it was pretty thrilling to see. And if you go to Westport by the Maritime Museum, this boat is out on the lawn, being displayed now as kind of a permanent fixture, because those students did it at Westport High School, or at Ocosta High School. So I wanted to show you a couple videos. One, I should have titled them here, but in my mind they're titled "The Wood Whacker" and "The Wood Measurer," and I'll tell you why. But we have an amazing stud mill in Shelton. Some of you have been there. We don't need sound on this, so I'm not gonna turn it on, but I'll make sure it's off. But we'll see if this loads. Now there's the sound. So this is the whacker. All right, that's one. I love that. And then this one I'll show you. And I'll tell you a little bit about why these are so STEMmy. And as the sun sets, my window makes a pattern on my face, so please forgive me. My videographer skills are sorely lacking, so forgive me. But I want you to notice that when that log went through, those two measurers came in and scanned it. And what happens is they would get a scan of the log down on a computer screen in the basement, and the machine automatically decides how many good studs they can get out of that log, and they know kind of how to cut it so that they get those good studs. And that includes if the log is bent, they know kind of how to cut it so the log will kind of spring back and then they get straight studs out of it. It's astonishing. And down in that room, in that basement, is their entire PLC setup, which is their mechatronics, automation, electronics. And they have a whole team of IT automation specialists down there that are managing that mill. You saw those saws, those huge circular saws, decide how wide they were going to be before they cut. And that is not just happening. That is programmed, that is automated. And so it's pretty amazing to see that. The mill needs STEM literate workers. They need skilled manufacturing technicians, mechatronics and automation experts. They need accountants, for crying out loud, digital designers, all sorts of stuff. And we're almost wrapped up. I'm taking too long, but this is fun stuff. Here we have Onalaska with their fish hatchery. They actually get involved in their tourism and hospitality a little bit because they stock their small lake, which brings folks to the town from miles and miles around. This high school raises the fish and stocks the lake. They also put about 700 salmon back into rotation, and the students raise them. And then we have Centralia. We have an alternative energy. This I love is Dr. Lisa Grant making a car that's about to be crashed into the wall by the alternative energy teacher. She's really into it too. That's Monica Brummer, the head of the Center of Excellence for Alternative Energy down at TransAlta. And this was a really great event, and that physics teacher then slammed all of our cars into the wall, and we saw if our light alternative materials could still keep folks safe, could still keep, there was an egg, there was a raw egg inside. So that's kind of what we did there. And then, of course, we had our amazing triatrade, and these are the pictures I did not take. But I hope that there's links at the end of this deck. I hope you'll go through them and look at the pictures and the report from this triatrade. We're having another one on Thursday at Newmarket Skills Center. That is this side version, kind of the Thurston County side, and then the one in the fall will be the Grace Harbor County side for our more rural students. And the students, you can see their testimonials. This is STEM. They got to be in these massive machines. They got to do stuff, bend stuff, and they got to talk to professionals. And then this is me. This is my sister's arm. I was trained in administering hemodialysis, and I have no healthcare background at all. And now we cannulate my sister. I'm able to take labs and they use the centrifuge that spins the blood around, which is thrilling, let me tell you that. And I also can understand her safety, troubleshooting issues and how to keep her safe. And I went through training to do this, and if by chance I decided to change careers, I could go through a little more training and start this work. No degree, no associate's degree, no college, actually be trained by the folks. So we'll bust the STEM myths. STEM is not just doctors, IT, and lab techs, and we love them, they're awesome. They do not always need a degree. They're in demand, these jobs. And it's not just for white males, though we love them too, they're great. And STEM literacy and interest in early childhood impacts all of K-12 and beyond. And what can we do is a lot. But today we're going to talk about some more of that. But speak to youth as if they all can have a STEM future, a future in STEM, because we've seen how broad that is. Educate them about all the different kinds of careers. And that's what we'll hopefully do and move along so that STEM can be for all students and we start to see those gaps close and close and close and close. So my sources are at the end of this. Hope you take a look, and thanks so much, Lori.
Thank you. This was fabulous. Really great. Thank you. Do we have any questions for Cecily? Doesn't look like it in the chat.
I want to see Cecily in action with her sister.
That's a statement, not a question.
I'm telling you, the first time I did it, and then we stood back and it was like all working. We were like, wow. So, but we had a very phenomenal nurse who is now, her whole job is training people to do this at home. So there's another STEM job you never would have thought of, right? But she was excellent and so patient and taught us everything. So yeah, but I have received STEM training very recently, so I had to include that.
So we could see that Jeff from Pack Mountain says stats support more marketing of these occupations. And Shelley's asking if everyone could get a copy of the slides.
Yeah, I'll make sure that you have them for the website too, for sure.
Marilyn is asked, I'm involved in an emerging children's museum, how to incorporate into ages preschool through grade 3. Well, Marilyn, you might want to come and talk to library staff about that too. Because that's what we do a lot of, is STEM related, birth to 5, actually birth to like adult. I mean, the common theme going through our summer library program, and thank you, Cecily, for the shout out to Timberland Regional Library for birth to 5. But birth to adult for summer library program, June 1st to August 31st, it's all about STEM or STEAM with the art stuff. So yeah, there's a lot that we can help you with, Marilyn. And then Shelley, what a great concept to connect early math learning to later employment. Blocks are important. Yes.
And I just want to clarify, when we say marketing, I really loved your comment. I think it was Jeff, you said the marketing to me is us modeling our acceptance of these roles as STEM roles, speaking of them as STEM roles, and saying, oh my gosh, you're in a STEM career, you're prepping for a STEM career. Well, I'm going into construction. Well, okay, yeah, you have to do a lot of engineering, technology, math, and science in that. And that is the only things that aren't considered STEM are if you go like Major in Shakespeare, and he's cool and stuff, and that's great. But anything else, we need to just speak the honor, because it's been given kind of an honor. It's been given kind of an honorary place to be in a STEM career. And I think we need to bequeath that honor verbally and in our acts and work more often to more careers that we see, because we know that they're STEM, and the students and youth, I think, need to understand that as well, and their parents.
Okay, so let's segue then into the panel. And we have Keith Ann Campbell from Big Brothers Big Sisters. She's the executive director. We have Marcy Schuber, the STEM instructor at Adna Elementary. We have Cecily, of course. We have Kale Flint from Equus WorkSource in Lewis County. We have Kat Santana, Workforce Development Director at the More Right Group. And Lori will be moderating this panel. Over to you, Lori.
Thank you, Cheryl, and thank you, Cecily, for an amazing presentation. I learn so much every time I listen to you. We're going to go ahead and start with Marcy Schuber. Marcy is a STEM instructor at Adna Elementary School in Lewis County. And I had the pleasure of working with Marcy for one night. She came to one of my classes, my science classes at Centralia College, and taught STEM to my students, my pre-service teachers. And I consider her an expert on STEM education for early education, K through 5. And I have a kind of an important question for you, Marcy.
Sure.
As a STEM educator at an elementary school, you know that students are not typically assessed in science until 5th grade. So what is so important about exposing young students, kinder through 4th even, to STEM learning?
Thank you for that. I just want to start really quick with kind of like, I don't even know if everyone knows where Adna is, and kind of a little bit about our school. Adna is a small 2B school. We have 600 kids. We have one elementary and one 6 through 12 high school. So really small in Lewis County. But I think we're really on the cutting edge of looking at serving kids in this idea of giving them the resources they need to be though in those careers and trades at a really young age when we can really light their fire very quickly. I started with just working with highly capable kids, and really what it started really like, wait, what's good for highly capable kids is good for all kids. And trying to then work with my administration who could see outside the box thinking, like, how can we get this to everybody? And I have to say, thanks to COVID, we had to really change our model a little bit. And my principal came to me and she said, would you like to teach STEM to everybody? And I was like, yeah, please. And we thought it would be 1 year, and we're going on year 5 of all kids in Adna Elementary come to STEM education. I see them for 45 minutes for 4 days a week, every other week. So they get a lot of STEM, and we do things from robots to a lot of problem solving, a lot of practicing failing forward. We say that a lot, that this is a safe place to fail. Kids don't really know how to do that anymore. This is a safe place to sit in our struggle. And I don't ever give the answers. You know, they know that. They's like, we have to figure this out ourselves. And I'm like, yeah, you do. Because that's real life. We got to figure these things out ourselves. We have to learn how to sit in our struggle. We have to learn how to fail forward. I say that all the time. We have to embrace our mistakes and realize what we can do with them. So when I think of STEM education, I think of as kids at a very early age learning how to do those skills, learning how to do multi-step problems that are meaningful. You know, when we talk about the metric system, and I have first and second graders who can tell you how big 30 centimeters is instantly. And it's because they know the robot that they're using programs in centimeters, and they know they want that robot to get to where they want it to go. And so if you give them that practical reason to know the metric system, they just do it. I'm so impressed by kids, what they can do if we give them the opportunity to do it in a safe place where they know that failing is part of this and it's okay. And every kid is exposed to this at Adna Elementary. We start right away in kindergarten. Kindergartners were in here today in my classroom, and they said, when do we get to program those robots to get them to do what we want them to do? And I'm like, give me a minute. My little kindergartners, you know, I got to get you to read first. But it's just such a neat opportunity. And I've just been so blessed to have an administration that is very supportive of STEM education and making sure that everyone is exposed to that. I just feel really lucky to be involved with this. It's pretty neat. It's been a neat experience.
That's awesome, Marcy. And I guess my next follow-up question, because I'm really eager to hear this, as someone who teaches science as a content standard anchor, how do you think, and how much do you think that your STEM instruction benefits students in other content areas? Do you think it lifts them up and makes them better students and better learners?
I think exposing them to in a safe environment to failure and learning how to grit through problems, we will see that as a benefit in other things. You know, when they learn that it's okay to not get something right the first time, it's okay to sit in my struggle. Those are all really good skills that even as adults, we need those. Everybody needs those skills. So am I more concerned about those than the specific of like programming or robotics or engineering or design challenges? I really want my kids to take those skills and apply them to all the other aspects of their life. It is more important to me in this day and age that kids learn that they're not going to be handed an answer in all life, that sometimes we can do hard things. And they're learning to do hard things. And I say that all the time. We do hard things. It's okay. We can struggle. I struggle. It's okay.
That's a great message. I love that. And I love that you teach that to young children, because it really sets them up for success later on. And
I think it gives them that confidence that I can do it. And I think being a female teacher myself, I think that I'm encouraging, those females to be like, oh, I had a little girl, she's like, I can't wait to be an engineer. And I'm like, oh, I want you to be an engineer too. Like I do. I really want them to be. I think that females add so much to that um engineering life that maybe we don't have enough of, and not that my two boys are engineers and I love them dearly, but it would be nice if they had some females in that aspect, more of that too.
Agreed. Thank you so much. Kat made a comment. Some of our greatest inventions were created through thousands of failures. And that is so
Yep.
true.
Yep. We
Thanks.
fail every day.
And that's okay.
I say that all the time. I make mistakes every day. Gosh, wish I could
That's
get
how
through
we
the day
learn.
without mistakes.
Thanks, Marcy. Okay, Keith Ann. Keith Ann, you are the executive director of Big Brothers Big Sisters of Southwest Washington. I've had a long, wonderful relationship with Big Brothers Big Sisters, and they about 5 or 6 years ago, I want to say, they opened a STEAM lab on site, and it was to bring together mentors from the business world, the STEM world, with young students and give them hands-on experience in STEAM, if you want to include arts and graphic design. And they got to do all these amazing things. I visited several times. So knowing that students, especially the ones who don't really get those opportunities in their regular day-to-day lives, how do you think the STEAM lab has made a difference in these students' lives?
I think especially it's helpful. We offer a summer program and a spring break program, and the kids can register, and we do like 1 week long um, different subjects, and it's from 1 to 5 p.m. every day. And each week we do a different subject that falls into STEAM, and that includes the arts. And it's neat because it offers all these kids insight into different things they can do when they grow up that involve STEAM that they didn't think would involve STEAM. For instance, over spring break, we did a crime scene investigation thing, and we had crime scene from the sheriff's office come over from Thurston County Sheriff's Office, and they kind of talked them through the different parts. They helped them do their fingerprints and to search for fingerprints around the lab and why we need, that kind of information. And they've also done things like gardening and how gardening can go with science and how art can go with science. But I think it's important to get this information to the kiddos that we help, because the kiddos that we help are the underserved. They're the ones that they're not getting this information, or they're not listening to this information because they have more important things going on in their lives, hard things going on at home. So we're trying to get that information in a safe and fun environment for them. And we do scholarships for a lot of the kiddos that we help, and the kids that aren't in our program that don't know about it. So we do our best to get the information out there for the kiddos that probably don't want to go to college or aren't looking to be a scientist or a microbiologist, or however you want to look at it. But we just give them the information and the knowledge that they can be whatever they want to be, and it doesn't have to be working at McDonald's if they don't want to go into debt.
And I have seen firsthand some of the amazing partnerships that you've created and Big Brothers has created over the years, from architectural design, construction, robotics, hand robotics, just amazing things. And now you're branching out into finance. So do a lot of these students stick with their mentors or vice versa, and then move on and eventually maybe even get a job or an internship?
Oh, they do. It's really interesting how the kids stick with it or do something for a while and they think, oh, this is not what I thought it was going to be. Let me try something else. So we have forestry, and we do that in the Grays Harbor area and in Mason County. And we also have the banking finance sector, like you mentioned. And we have the architecture, construction, and naked prosthetics, I think is the one you were talking about. Um, that's the one that Senator Murray came and watched them work with all the kids that were interested in going into that field, but thinking that they had to have some kind of engineering degree or some other type of degree. But it was nice to know that they can go work there right out of high school. They can have a job and get some on-the-job training while they're doing it. And it's also fun. They thought it was really neat to see the prosthetic hands being made, and it was just an interesting experience.
It was super fun. I watched them as they were manipulating the fingers of the hands. It was very cool to be there. And it's right in our own backyard. I mean, it's in Thurston County, downtown Olympia. And it was great to see Senator Murray as well. Um, I'm just curious about I know you do a lot of your work in rural areas. Do you have enough mentors in the rural areas that want to partner with the schools and the students?
We do. We have a lot. I think what helps is that we have partners like Sierra Pacific and
Mhm.
Green Diamond, and they have employees that work for them and they offer them like work time to volunteer. So they're doing it, they're getting paid to do it, they're having fun with the kids. And we actually have, I think, 15 mentors right now that don't have littles yet, that are interested to join in the fall. So it's an ongoing program. It's really good for the mentors and the kids. And I got to tell you, most of the mentors tell me they get more out of it than they think the kids do.
And that's creating those amazing career pathways in STEM. That's kind
It
of keeping that pipeline going, especially for
is.
our rural students who don't really have as much exposure to the STEM careers as, say, people who live in Olympia or Thurston County. So
Yes,
that's
and
really
most
what
of them
you
are.
do is so important.
Thank you. Most of them are ones that they wouldn't think traditionally as a STEM career, but
Mhm.
like that forestry that Cecily was talking
Yeah.
about, that we do that in Grays Harbor at the college. And it's amazing the kinds of things those kids are learning about, testing the soil and testing the wood to see if it's diseased and how long they have to grow them before they can cut them down. And it's very interesting.
I know sometimes I hear a student say, I didn't understand why I needed to learn calculus or geometry until I visited Sierra Pacific. And that's what they do every day for their job. And I
Yeah.
just, wow, what a great feeling because you're actually applying what you're learning in class. So yes, thank you for all the work that you do to support students in STEM careers and that
Yeah, thank
exposure.
you.
And Cecily, wonderful presentation again. This is the person you want to talk to if you are interested in career technical education and anything having to do with creating those connections between what goes on in high school coursework with CTE and how it applies to the industries around us in our region. So, Cecily, as the expert on CTE, how is CTE? I often hear people say, how is CTE the same as STEM? Like, what does that have to do with anything? Like, how come some schools have CTE, a lots of extensive CTE programs, and some only have one? How does that connect to college and post-secondary? A lot of classes, a lot of questions, but let me just start with what is CTE and how is that STEM?
Awesome. Thanks for having me again. I have learned a lot about CTE in this job. It's been kind of my favorite thing. I was a school leader prior to this and a school teacher in an elective course, but not CTE. And so we started a CTE academy for our online high school students, which then, of course, kind of came in handy during COVID. And that's where my learning began, right? So CTE stands for Career and Technical Education. It is nationwide. So when you hear of CTE, it's not just a Washington thing. There are states that are really, really good at it. Texas, of course, and some of those southern states are really great at it. We, I think, are really good at it, and that's partly why this panel is here, is to continue to help us get more access for students that maybe don't have access to it. The reason CTE is separated out as a specific type of course is that it does receive a little bit of extra funding from the state when you can jump through all the hoops as a school, as a high school or a college. And it also can receive a little money from federal money as well, which is called Perkins. So that's why you hear it kind of in the same breath as maybe special education or other things, because there's money there, and that really makes people nervous, or it makes them highly motivated. Either way, that's why CTE gets some attention. And that's why it's also pretty alarming that so many of our students don't have access to good CTE programming. But when you think of CTE, some of you might immediately think of, like I always just thought of shop, right? Shop, it's a woods class, or, you know, I'm building a car, it's automotive, or, which is cool because that's awesome CTE. And some of our most rural schools have some really great shop programs. CTE includes 16 different sectors, and Washington State kind of clumps them into 6 groups. They include healthcare or health sciences, they include human services, they include IT and technology, then there's STEM, and then of course we have what they call skilled and technical sciences, which is everything from wood shop to graphic design to digital photography. So kind of all the arts and making stuff. And that's like welding and plasma cutting too. So some of it's pretty hairy and some of it's on a computer. So you never quite know. And then there's other ones too, floral design. There's just a ton of things that are categorized under CTE. CTE can be funded all the way down into 7th grade. So middle school basically wants you to stay kind of basic STEM stuff. So the students are learning their what they need to know in their normal science classes. And then in high school is when it starts to split into specific pathways. The reason CTE is amazing is because it, by law, you have to connect the courses to the community industry experts. You cannot just do it in a vacuum. By law, you have to have meetings with an advisory committee full of industry professionals who are advising you and your students on what is needed in the community, what is needed in the industry. If there's some weird thing the kids are learning and somebody says that's completely obsolete, you don't have to teach them that anymore. Great, we needed to know that. It's time, you know, that's why that community connection is so great. Not to mention the fact that then, as Keith Ann was saying, students get to know adults in the industry. They have connections for internships, for job shadows, and they're able to kind of get out there. Students are able to get credit for working with CTE, and then students with some schools can actually do legitimate approved apprenticeships through their high school through CTE. There's tons, I could talk about it forever, but the access issue is real. Our rural students have do not have the same access as our I-5 corridor, or even, you know, our really great Eastern Washington students. The students kind of out in the middle of counties, or maybe who don't have a lot of employers nearby, they have to rely on kind of combining with other schools. They may not have facilities or equipment. I had a teacher call me and say, what am I supposed to do with this shop? Everything in here is 65 years old. And I said, well, that's tough, because they just hired this person. They were trying to get their shop program going and threw him into this really old facility. And I said, okay, and that's what Lori and me and all of these people are here for, is we said, let's find some grants, let's find some equipment grants. There's money out there. Let's figure out how to get you some, right? So you can buy a table saw or whatever it is that you need to make things happen. So the access thing is real. The goal is to increase it, but the goal is not to increase it just for kicks, like not to just throw a business pathway at some kid out in the middle of nowhere. If they want to, that's great. But to throw them a pathway that they want, that reflects the needs and demands of their community, of where they actually want to work and what they actually want to do, and where they're actually going to get hired and get experience, and in a family wage job. So we could talk about how floral design is great, but you might not make a family wage at that unless you are an entrepreneur. Then that's a different story. And guess what? Entrepreneurship, that's a CTE class. So starting your own business is a big part of things. Running your student store at your school, that's CTE. All sorts of really great things. So I could talk forever, but I do just want to clarify, when you hear about it in your community or in others, and you hear and see good things happening, or you wonder, why aren't more good things happening? Keep in mind that your advocacy and your voice matters so much in these things, to make sure that we keep funding out in our rural areas, that we keep funding for groups like Capital STEM Alliance and other folks that are doing that, like Timberland Regional Library is out there in the spots. They're out there where folks can access them, and they're able to get some of those great experiences through there too.
That's amazing. See, I knew you were the queen of CTE. So a little bit, one more question, a little bit about, I'm just going to pick your brain one more time. Just, can you talk about a little bit about what the connection is between CTE coursework and post-secondary opportunities? And I mean, I'm specifically mean like community technical colleges.
Yeah, we have excellent CTCs, community and technical colleges in this state, and we have excellent there. So there's some that are qualified specifically as technical colleges, and some that are community colleges. All of them are doing great work in the CTE area. The names mean something about their funding. I don't ask me about that. But CTE continues into post-secondary. The federal funding and the state funding continues into post-secondary. It's not as big of a deal because community colleges just have more stuff, and so you're not as shocked when you see a really cool fish hatchery at a community college, or a welding, like a bunch of welding bays at a college, as you are when you see them in a high school. And then you're kind of like, wow. We kind of expect community colleges to have a huge fleet of stoves and professional kitchens so that you can stand there and learn how to cook, right? And not all of them do. So CTE is great, and the really great ones, these leaders in these schools and these leaders in these regions and these counties are communicating with their colleges and saying, what programs do you have? And the really good colleges are coming back and saying, well, what programs are they asking for? And in some cases, it does not match. And that is an issue, especially with our rural kids. We've got kids that want a program that's not available, but they also don't want to go stay away at college, and they can't afford it. They need to be able to go to the local college. And so that's why it's great when you can start to communicate. The pathway shouldn't end at 12th grade. And that's how we all feel, right? The pathway should connect seamlessly and fully funded into college. And sometimes it does. And when it does, it's so great. So I'll use that clean energy example. Down in Centralia, we have a group that has received grants from Career Connect Washington and the Department of Ecology to write new classes about alternative energy. And they're writing a set that will take a kid through a whole pathway in school. It's phenomenal. And they already have a teacher who's piloting it. He's kind of their test case, and he's fearless, and the kids are really enjoying it. This is happening at Centralia High School. Centralia College came right alongside and said, okay, what are we doing? These classes you're building, not only are we going to give college credit for them when the students take them in the high school, but we are going to have a program to catch them when they come out of 12th grade to continue their journey in alternative energy and clean energy. And so, down by Centralia College, they have the TransAlta, they have the Center of Excellence, and they're going to have a massive hydrogen hub down there. They've gotten several huge federal grants that really, you're like, Lewis County, really? Down there? Yes, it's stunning. And these students will be prepared for jobs that do not yet exist, because the high school, the community, the employers, and the community college are on at the same table working together on this. It takes a lot of work to do that, and it takes a lot of years, but they're succeeding. It's one of the best projects in the state right now. So if you ever want to know more about that, Lori and I can tell you.
This is such a great opportunity. I'm so glad you brought that up. It's a great opportunity to create that continuous pipeline for STEM learning and STEM careers. And it's so beneficial, especially for students in rural areas who don't have otherwise opportunities to go into that, like you said, alongside where the community college works right alongside the K through 12 system. That's a beautiful thing. And that's called program building. And we love that. Thank you, Cecily, for your expertise. You always amaze me. You always have so much information. Okay, now we're going to talk to Kale. Kale represents the 5-county region for Equus and WorkSource. And Kale works with young people who specifically have barriers to STEM careers. And Kale, I've known you for a while now, and I'm so impressed with all the hard work that you put in to support each individual person that you work with is like the most important person that you've ever seen. So I'm so impressed with that. How can you describe a little bit about the work that you do with individual youth to help get them into that career pipeline, especially in a STEM pipeline?
Absolutely. So hello, everybody. My name is Kel Flint. I'm the project director for Equus Workforce Solutions. I'm one of the many partners that exist inside of the WorkSource offices that you see locally in your communities, alongside several others that are in the room. The area that I mostly work in is in the training area, but I can speak to a lot of what happens inside of our WorkSource system, specifically with youth and our youth programming, whether it is Equus or other youth providers that are attached to the WorkSource system, which is really a network of a lot of different youth providers, are very much interested in helping introduce youth and young individuals, because it's also possibly older than you might think, up to age 24, introduce them to viable, good quality sectors and occupations within those sectors that will provide a living wage. So much of what Cecily was covering earlier, whether it is the credential gap, is the same type of labor market information that I'm looking at on a very frequent basis to bring that information down to my frontline staff to help disseminate that information to youth. So one of the things that we do with all youth that enter the program is to give them assessments. It is sometimes not that fun, but we try to make it fun. It's a Tradeify assessment, and it's really, really fast, rapid fire, a few questions online to help us just start the conversation, because that can sometimes be some of the hardest part is I don't know what I want to do. I have zero idea. I just know I feel like I need to get a job. So we start with that, and we start peeling back the layers of the onion to say what might be a good fit. Where does the natural inclinations go? Do they like working outside, indoors, working with their hands, technology? And that usually starts a really great conversation. And in our youth programming and in other youth programs, is looking at what is available in the community in high quality jobs. Where can we stair step? So some of the same language we've learned using in education, where can we stair step in individuals in their career? So for our youth participants, looking at typically that first or second step. So what can we really chunk out and say, all right, I'm taking an individual who may be facing barriers. Our youth who are facing barriers are variety, including youth that are in foster care and maybe aging out soon, and that is an unknown, to youth who are houseless, youth who are young, pregnant, or parenting, for example, is a variety. So with also partnering with a lot of different community partners to help support them in those other barriers, it is talking about that career, what might be next, which sectors of our 6 in-demand sectors seem like there is a calling, and let's start trying some things out. So one of our major strategies and tools to help allow our youth participants to explore is what's called work experiences, where we use our funding available to us to help place them into local businesses so they can real time earn wages. So they're getting a paycheck, but it's in an environment where that employer knows that this individual is learning. So they can get that extra instruction. There is a training plan. They are going alongside that individual to help them understand the basics, which include clocking in, clocking out, some of the things that come along, work readiness. But in addition to that is exposure to a career field and exposure to an occupation that they might want to continue with their education. I would be remiss if I didn't speak to, we also have adults that are also in a career change that are past 24 and want to become, you know, more equipped with STEM skills because their occupation is maybe a trend is changing and they're needing to pick up STEM skills, or they're having a complete career change, or maybe they never got into the occupation that they really desired the first go around and they're wanting an opportunity, that there's still much opportunity available for individuals who are, you know, 18 to 100 out there available through the work source and through a variety of partners that are actually here with me today. So we work really in an ecosystem with a variety of partners that includes our community colleges and technical colleges, training providers, high schools, variety in our communities to try to catch and provide opportunity for individuals with some funding to be able to close that credential gap. So yeah, a little about how we serve youth.
You mentioned something about soft skills, and I just want to go with that for a second. What about students or youth who have other barriers like transportation barriers or childcare barriers or broadband barriers, or they can't afford tools or they can't afford a uniform? Is there any way that Equus WorkSource supports that?
Yeah, so I can speak to Equus, and I can also speak a little bit to some of the others that are also supporting youth, because I mentioned it's really an ecosystem and we're all interconnected. So in our programming, we do have access to, we call them supportive services, and that is funding to be able to help mediate some of those barriers. If we can't find another program out in the community that is also serving, because there really are, you know, a few different programs where maybe somebody is providing some support with housing, and then somebody else might be, hey, I could do a one-time gas card. So we're really trying to blend together what is available in the community and then layer on top of that access to transportation. Maybe we can't find anything readily available in our community for a gas card. That's when we can come in. If they're in our programming and actively working with us, that might be something we can navigate. I have in my time here, I've worked as a frontline staff for quite a while and then have moved up the ranks since then. But some of my most successful interactions with students was removing some of those barriers, which was simply gaining access to a set of clothes for your first few days at your new job, getting those black slacks and non-slip shoes, getting those food handlers cards, which for many barriered youth, it is what will prevent them from starting. And so removing some of what seems like smaller barriers in the grand scheme of things, we're not talking thousands of dollars, sometimes just less than 100 to get them going in the right spot, can really be impactful for helping them be successful.
Thank you for sharing that. I like that holistic approach. I think that's a great way of, and it's called wraparound services and supports, correct? Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Kale. And last but not least, Kat Santana. I've worked with Kat now for a while, and now Kat has recently gone on to the More Right group, where she's in charge of workforce and economic development. So congratulations. I'm curious, Kat, as to what the More Right group can do to support your role at the More Right group to support economic expansion and workforce development. I know you've only been there like 1 minute, but you are so well connected in our entire region, and you know about so many programs that are available, especially with some of our local and state agencies that support barriered youth in getting a STEM job. So could you just talk a little bit about some of those agencies and that you've worked with and how they have helped youth?
Yeah, thank you. I'm so glad to be here. I've been in the workforce development servicing regionally for 9 years now. So it's very exciting to think I've been doing this, and partnerships has been my specialty for 9 years. So I'm really excited to be able to share information. So we talk about the More Right group. But before I go there, I just have to let you know, like, as I'm listening to everyone, I have filled my space with like 50 post-its of not just what we do at the More Right group, but also the resources in general. And no, she did not pay me to plug the Timberland Regional Library, but that's what I'm going to do. So first and foremost, our partners who are on this call have shared a little bit about what they do and the services they provide. And of course, wraparounds are really important because of those barriers. But I think of the Timberland Regional Library, we use in workforce, we use the term one stop. And I think of how many different things when we talk about that birth all the way to adulthood, how many resources are provided there. And the one thing that I think about when it's really important when you're dealing with folks with barriers is the cost of things. So free. When I think of free library cards, and that gives you access to free training and the calendar of events serving STEM pre-K all and birth all the way up to adulthood, you can't go wrong with making sure you have a library card. So there's my plug. Get your library card so you have access to all these free things that are tied to workforce development. Literally, when my first comment when Cecily said I wasn't allowed to talk about that was, when you think of STEM jobs, what is it? It's literally everything. I'll never forget challenging my 7th grader to find a job that did not include math. And one of the funniest things was, I just want to grow up and bake and cook. Well, guess what? Double a recipe, my child. And tell me that's not math, right? So STEM is everywhere. Wraparounds, we find that in our rural spaces are a little bit sparse. So we can't say that they're everywhere. There are some, and for youth, it tends to be very focused on in our schools. We want to make sure we have robust things. And that's my first resource is our schools. Our schools offer everything, so many things after school for free. I think of my own kiddo doing Lego engineering. What an exposure to a career pathway. And just something that sounds like it's a fun game. I think of the Thurston County Chamber Math for Life. Not only are kids getting out and getting exposed to every career that does math, but they're learning those social skills when they have to go talk to a bank teller and say, tell me about your job. How do you use math? So all those skills, social skills, and seeing what people look like and how they talk professionally in those different atmospheres and those different businesses. So that is wonderful. Resources, obviously we have WASFA and FAFSA, and we have several organizations that pay to help parents and students learn how to fill out those applications. You heard from Equus, serving both in and out of school youth regionally. I'm just going through a list. We have the Washington Opportunity Scholarship Association that focuses on giving scholarships to students who want to break out in STEM careers. So, and it's easy to apply for those things. When we talk about other careers, we think about the trades. The Washington State Labor Council has a wonderful program called Construct a Career. Construct a Career has navigators that help navigate folks to our 18 building and construction trades. Again, free services that we can share out so that we can have youth learn more about how to get into apprenticeship. There's also organizations like ANU that offer wraparound services to help students get to those trades, whether it's housing or supplies, work gear. I think of our partner FES, who's here. One of the biggest barriers that our young folks face is mental health crisis. I think of suicide prevention and those services that are very needed when our young folks have to think of the future and how hard and scary that may be. It can be overwhelming and lead to mental health distress. So reach out and talk to Shelly about those services. She's here on our call today. Grub will let you volunteer so you can learn about agriculture, so exposing you to the science of growing food. We have the new market. I know Cecily mentioned it with 2 tri-trades, exposing you to careers, free for our schools to come and attend and expose students to hands-on what it looks like to run a big piece of a machinery or a saw or build an electrical circuit, bend conduit, What does it look like? And talk to steel workers and our folks that do welding and all the other wonderful careers. So all these things are free. Think of your community events calendar. And again, the library is a great resource for that. What's happening that's free that allows you to expose your kiddos and also talk to them and explain to them why it's important, because, we have to learn math, we have to learn science, and sometimes that doesn't seem exciting. But when they realize that it's part of their future and you can excite them about that, you ignite something really, really special. I will share more if I have time, but I do want to talk about the More Right group. So as the brand new director of workforce and economic development, we have one well-established workforce development program right now, which is our certified logistics associate. I had to think about that. I wanted to say warehousing, but yes, it's warehousing. We talked about what are some of those short-term credentials that can lead folks to career. OSHA, forklift, CPR. We are adding culinary program. The More Right Group is now the owner of 42 properties, including a brand new restaurant that we're getting ready to open, and we are building a culinary program in there. We are also working on developing a construction program to give youth construction basics. All of our programs are accessible for youth and adults. So several serve at starting the age of 16. Some of the credentials we can give to young folks at 16, it depends on the employer whether or not they can employ them at 16. Most often it's 18 if you're going into like Sierra Pacific and different spaces where you're going to be around big, scary machinery, and make sure that you are insured. And that's the hang up, is the employer insurance. It's not about the capability of our young folks. It's just that liability that we are trying to work around. We have re-entry for youth and adults. So we had last week a young man, 17 years old, came out of a youth detention facility. And within an hour, we were deployed to meet with him, wrap him up with housing and supports, make sure he had food, access to clothing and work gear. We are a distribution center of a 44,000 square foot warehouse full of essential use items, all the way from feeding folks 450 food boxes every single Friday going out into our community, to if someone's house is burnt down, we have fire recovery, we have FEMA, we have if your house floods or a natural disaster, we can help retrofit your home so that it's livable again. We have 2 hotels that are up, getting ready to open and start taking transitional housing for reentry, and folks who need to travel to us to get workforce development training. So there'll be an opportunity where we can travel to the community to train, but we can also bring folks to us to temporarily house them while they are getting training in our facility in Aberdeen. I'm trying to think of all the wonderful things that we have. We have a recovery cafe. We have warm or cold weather shelter. Anybody is welcome at 9 a.m. to walk in and say what their needs are. We feed them, we give them tea, we give them space, we give them access to a computer to look for jobs. We have career coaches, we have social workers, we have navigators to help folks find out what is local in the community. But the wonderful thing about my role is I also get to build programs statewide. So right now we're working with immigrant and migrant populations in Eastern Washington so that we can train them virtually, which means a lot of things. We will be also providing in Spanish for both our youth and adults. So we are a community of care. If we do not have a resource to provide you with workforce development training and wraparound, we are well connected with partners in the community to make sure that whatever we don't have, we can get folks access to it through a referral system that we have. So there's several points of entry. No matter if you're coming there because you need housing, and you think about it, if you need housing, most likely you need a job. And if you need a job and you've been housing insecure and unemployed for a while, you may have some mental health distress. We may have seen folks remiss into substance use disorders, so we can help lift them back out of that. So it's a very amazing community. We say it's a safe space of giving and peace. So we're really happy when folks walk through our door and feel safe to come and see us there. And we will continue to build programs. We have many ideas, and that's where the economic development comes in, is where do we find the funds for these things to make sure that we are training folks in those jobs that can be family sustaining wages, because that's really important. And again, we serve families, the whole family. It doesn't matter what you need. We become that space where come on in and we will help you, navigate you, provide you services ourselves. We're a growing organization that has added 10 new staff within the last 30 days. And if you look at our website, there's other jobs available. Yes, they do require STEM, just to let you know, for all of those jobs, including executive assistant, because you need to know about technology. So that's my information on the More Right group. But there's some other things I want to talk about if we have a minute, Lori. For folks who are interested in, I'm going to plug cybersecurity, right, as a STEM career. I want folks to understand that you can go to the Idaho National Labs, where there are free modules for anybody of any age, starting at age 14, can go and take a wide variety of free cybersecurity exploratory modules, which will help young folks decide in IT where they want to go. Coding, cyber, operational technologies, there's a wide variety of that. So that is my plug for our IT sector. And we have our Wet Science Center downtown. We have the Hands-On Children's Museum. We have exposure to ecology, our water systems for municipality, different spaces to engage with the PUDs for roles there. And I would welcome anybody here or watching this later on a video recording to reach out to me. My email is Kat, super easy, kat@tmwg, short for the More Right Group.org, and reach out. And I would love to share resources. I've done more than what my current job is. I have a lot of knowledge up here I would love to share and resources. So please reach out. And I hope that answered all the questions, Lori.
It answered the question. And as you can see, and you're the perfect person to round us off, because as you can see, starting from Marcy to Keith Ann, to Cecily, to Kale, to Kat, it's a continuum. STEM education is a continuum, and it's not just an academic continuum. It brings in every sector, every organization. It's a community continuum. And all of our community partners who are here tonight and the ones that were mentioned are an integral part of all of that. So I'm glad that you reminded us of that, Kat. Very nice answer. I'm going to turn it over to Cheryl. Thank you to our panelists for answering all our questions. And Cheryl, it's up to you.
Thank you so much for, you all talked about the whole region throughout what you said. And it's so encouraging to know that there's so much support in the region for helping youth connect to what they're passionate about. Thank you so much. This has been a really, really great hour and a half. It just flew by. I learned a lot. I'm sure others have too. Our next moving forward is going to be on November 4th at 4:30 this year. It will be on financial literacy and post-secondary funding. And I wanted to thank Chris Charzan, who has been our technical support during this program. And he will be sharing out the recording. It'll be on the Timberland Regional Library YouTube channel, which is just at the bottom of our website, the link there. He'll be sharing it with Lori to put on the ESD 113 YouTube channel, and we're going to share it with all of you. So please just spread it out and all over the region so that a lot of people can listen to it and be inspired by it. So I want to thank everyone. We are at 5:57. We started at 4:29. Thank you all, and we will see you across the region at some point.
Thank you, keynote
Thank
speaker,
you.
and our panelists. Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, Chris.
Lori. Thank you, Chris.